I should probably apologize in advance for today's topic, since last week's episode, The Story Behind Lollipops, got Shirley Temple and the Chordettes stuck in the heads of a few listeners. I promise I won't play the theme song to the candy bar I'll talk about in this episode, but if it does get stuck in your head anyway, you're not alone. A poll from the University of Cincinnati proved that the Gimme a Break jingle was one of the most common earworms. And probably just by saying that catchphrase, you already know what this episode is about. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind Kit Kat. But first, a quick message.
Hi, this is Layla. You're listening to my mom's podcast. If you like the story behind, tell your friends. Have fun.
No one quite knows where candy maker Joseph Roundtree got the idea for the name of his most famous product, Kit Kat. In fact, he didn't even have a product when he registered the name in 1911, 24 years before the chocolate-covered wafers we know today were even introduced. The Nestle website says the name was in reference to a pie shop owned by a baker named Christopher Catling. Other sources say his name was simply Christopher Cat, but he was nicknamed Kit Kat. The pie shop, which sold savory meat pies as opposed to the sweet pies we're more familiar with, was known for hosting men coming in to talk about literature and politics, setting a trend for similar meeting places that took on the name Kit Kats or Kit Kat clubs in the 1700s. Some say it was even the pies that were named Kit Kats, but regardless, the name has been around long before the candy bar we know today. And if you're a theater geek like me and wondering if this is the same Kit Kat club referred to in the musical Cabaret, no, it is not. But there is also a rumor of a Kit Kat club in the West End of London in the 1920s whose ceilings were so low only paintings that were wider than they were long could fit, and these paintings were known as cats. The edges had to be snapped off in order to fit, similar to how Kit Kat bars are snapped. That is, unless you're a monster who just takes a bite out of the whole bar at once. Anyway, this club was around after Roundtree trademarked the name, but before the actual candy bar was established. On the other side of the pond in the 1800s, a weekly magazine was published out of Philadelphia known as Kit Kat. But there's no indication Roundtree would have even been aware of this. One more rumor about the name was that it came from Roundtree's wife, who was a member of the sorority Kappa Alpha Theta, and one of their mottos was Keep in Touch Kappa Alpha Theta, which forms the acronym Kit Kat. Originally, Roundtree used the name for boxes of chocolates when he first registered it. But when he finally introduced the chocolate-dipped wafers, they went from being called Roundtree's Chocolate Crisp to Kit Kat Chocolate Crisp, at the suggestion of his marketing director, George Harris. Kit Kats thrived, since this was at a time when candy bars were being pushed as good-for-you meals or additions to meals, like we talked about in the story behind Baby Ruth in the last episode. It was also a convenient way for workers to eat a quick meal on the go, instead of losing money on the job by taking a break. Soldiers on the front lines were given candy bars, including Kit Kat, to keep their energy up. When whole milk became difficult to come by during World War II, production continued but used dark chocolate instead. But that was discontinued in 1949, and the wrapper went from being blue, as it was during the war, back to being bright red, so people knew they were getting the milk chocolate variety. Kit Kats were so popular, and the trend was brought back to the United States after the war was over. And in the 1950s, commercials began touting the famous tagline, "Have a break, have a Kit Kat." But for some reason, Kit Kats weren't thriving as well in the United States. So Roundtree decided to sell the rights to manufacture and sell Kit Kats to Hershey for better reach. This was before Roundtree was bought by Nestle, and even though Nestle now produces Kit Kats for the rest of the world, Hershey still has the right to manufacture and sell them in the US. Okay, are you confused yet? Well, if you look at a Kit Kat bar from the United States next to a Kit Kat from outside the US, the packaging is a similar color, but the font's a little different, and the Nestle logo is on the ones produced outside of the US. And by the way, outside of the US does include Canada, since as I was recording this, Stephen Jondrew from Better Podcasting and GonnaGeek.com just sent me a picture of Canadian Kit Kats, and their packaging includes the Nestle logo. Of course, people have posted blogs and video comparing the two in taste, with the Nestle version winning almost every time. And speaking of tasting, here's where this episode will be a bit different from others. When I found out that the Japanese loved Kit Kats, I had no idea there were more than 120 flavors and varieties in Japan. Apparently, the name Kitokato, as the Japanese pronounce it, sounds similar to the phrase Kitokatsu, which translates to "you will surely win," making these incredibly popular and considered a lucky talisman. So popular, it's said 5 million per day are consumed in Japan. Thanks to listener Amy, who tweeted at me that Japanese varieties were available on Amazon. And in the name of research, I had a variety pack sent to my house to try. But I couldn't just try these on my own, so I enlisted my willing victims, coworkers, to help me out. Just to warn you, if you are an audiophile and the sound of wrappers and chewing all bother you, you might want to skip to the end. Only a few of the Kit Kats had the actual English translations on the wrapping. For the rest, we had some help from a coworker who could read a little Japanese, and also the Google Translate app, which if you've ever used before, can produce some pretty funny translations if held at the wrong angle.
I feel like we're going to have more fun using the Google Translate to figure out what these are than we actually
You're like, yep, that's citrus, okay.
It's a bite into it like, yep, ham again.
Well, Kit, wish come true.
It's like you looked in the Ark of the Covenant. I'm so confused.
Department figurative citrus. Department of citrus.
Oh, wow. Well, then you know it's official.
I
I don't know if we're going to top argue the citrus taste lotus. That's a great pickup line.
The top part says tube each of the test, and then the gold part says raspberry.
That's a really awkward taste the rainbow.
But from what we can tell, we got to try blueberry white chocolate.
It's very mild.
Yeah.
Very, very mild. Very good. I would have that again.
Yeah, that's okay.
5 out of 5.
Strawberry cheesecake.
It reeks of cheesecake. I know exactly what it tastes like, but I don't know what it's called.
Sorry to look it up, man.
Whoa.
That's the thing.
All I know is it reeks of cheesecake.
Very good.
Dark chocolate.
I would eat that one again.
Citrus.
It tastes like cleaning product.
Oh my god.
I'm getting Fruity Pebbles now.
Lemon Pledge.
Sure.
Pumpkin pie, which is available in the US.
So now I'm wondering if it's actually pumpkin pie or if it's pumpkin spice, which has no pumpkin in it at all.
It says
feeling
crisp
brave?
wafers in pumpkin pie
Smells like a
flavored
candle.
cream.
Oh,
Oh my god, it does smell like a candle. Oh wow.
it's chai.
Following that with Pepsi was a bad call.
Mint.
This one's in English, I trust it.
It's light mint, like the mint chocolate chip ice cream, kind of.
Sake.
Anyone that's had sake has to try this.
Sakura and soybean.
I don't know what it tastes like.
No, I don't either.
Well, that's not good.
Sakura, by the way, is cherry blossom. 2 different green tea flavored ones.
One of the viewers at home. He popped the whole thing in his mouth and made the best I'm not sure face. It was not the I have immediate regrets face, but it could have been.
That's good.
Yeah.
What is a leaf aftertaste?
It tastes like a leaf.
It tastes like seaweed.
Well, yeah.
How dare you? Sushi's delicious.
And then there was a Zuki red bean sandwich Kit Kat, which I had high hopes for.
This one is the red bean. It should be good.
But unfortunately,
Tastes like my shoe. This is like lentils gone bad, man. This is everything that I thought vegetables tasted like when I was little.
not every flavor could be a winner.
The red bean is like when Super Shredder went into the right when he went into the dumpster in Turtles 2. Like,
Oh, now you just ruined
oh, it's hot trash.
That's right.
But luckily for us, my variety pack didn't come with wasabi or soy sauce. And yes, those are available flavors. I want to thank my awesome coworkers for subjecting their taste buds to my impulse Amazon buy. And again, thank you to Amy for letting me know that these were available in the States. Information for this episode was sourced from Nestle.com, CBS Sunday Morning, SpoonUniversity.com, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. This episode was brought to you by the Story Behind executive producers who support the show through the Patreon page at patreon.com/thestorybehind. Thanks for listening.
I, like 31 flavors, am many things to many people.
I am like Kit Kat in Japan.
But am I the citrus taste lotus? I am not.
Who are you the red bean to?